Boom. Boom. Let me make y'all a little smaller. But we are live and on Every Deja Vu TV episode 3. I'm here with Chaiah and Lilith. What's up, y'all? How you doing?
Hello. What's up? How are you?
Yo, oh shoot, how you doing?
Where are y'all video calling in from right now?
Oh, we're at my place right now in Boston, Massachusetts.
Nice. Is
You
this
about to dox yourself? That's wild.
they're gonna find you now? Is this where the raw mate videos take place? Is this the place?
It is. It is. We've been doing this radio show here, doing some stuff from this angle and also from the angle in the back. It's
Nice.
cool.
Those have been fun. We'll talk about them a little later. But how have y'all been? What have y'all been up to musically, personally? What's been going on?
Um, I've been good. Thank you for asking. It's been pretty busy. For me, it's my last semester at college at Berkeley, so there's a lot going on, a lot of transition. Um, a lot of projects, a lot of music, a lot of learning. Uh, it's nice, and I'm just looking ahead to move to New York and see what's good there.
Man, I mean, like honestly, I just been like watching this like Criterion Collection Jackie Chan box movie set right now, and it's been kind of awesome. I mean, like I just been on Letterbox for the past couple weeks, but besides other weeks right now, I've been kind of just processing a lot of things in terms of just like where I'm going musically wise, creatively. A lot of breakthroughs being made, especially with this like live band project that I'm starting and soon to be ending at Pieces Volume 4, I think. Pieces Volume 4, Exit
Yep, yep.
Galleries. Um, but pretty much just kind of figuring stuff out right now. I mean, Chai's leaving, but also we're all going to be in like New York at some point. So I've been doing pretty good. Thank you for asking. Just kind of learning to take things slower than usual.
Is New York the destination for all of you? Is that the end future from Boston to New York? And Chai, it sounds like that's for you this summer, or as soon as possible. And Lilith, is that just
Yeah,
whenever?
yeah, it's coming at different times, but it seems to be everything seems to be going there. Bunch of the people we've been working with, all the Ganush Collective, and a bunch of our friends, and like people's gonna be there, and a lot of things are gonna be happening there. And been going a little bit lately, and I just really appreciate how there's something very valuable there about artists making art for the sake of art that I find like so moving and inspiring and just kind of attracts me to go there.
Yeah, I mean, like New York's literally right next to my home state. Shout out New Jersey. Yeah, Phil Murphy. Well, I'm okay. Let me not shout that guy out, but it's whatever. I'm actually really excited because I've really enjoyed being in Boston. It's done a lot for my music because back in New Jersey, there really wasn't that much of a scene there for my stuff. So it really ended up being a little bit of a blessing in disguise because I feel like I met the right people. And then suddenly it just kind of trajectory wise put me into Boston, but then started pushing me back into like the lower armpit of the East Coast, which is where like New York and New Jersey is again. So it's actually really been quite interesting. I still got a year of college left. I'm still trying to figure all of that kind of stuff out. But thankfully, slowly but surely, I think I'm gonna make my way over to Brooklyn. As Chai said, I got a lot of people there, a lot of people to love over there too. Ganoush Collective, um, got Asher over there. Shout out Kid Revel. Shout out Eli. I think Kyle's gonna be there too. There's a lot of heads going to New York, so it's just like the obvious choice for me. I feel. What are you laughing at?
No, because I mean I know you also have been thinking about it late.
Literally threatened me if I went anywhere else that you would like find me or some shit. Oh my god.
No,
I
it's an awesome place as well.
Yeah, and I know Lilith, you're gonna be there next weekend. And yeah, I've seen you've been doing shows. And I feel like every time I come into contact with somebody who knows you, whether it's like an Instagram follow or something, it's like, oh, New York or Boston. It's like I feel like that since we're so close, it happens so commonly that Boston, New York intertwine so much. Um, and I have so many questions to ask about New York and everything, but I want to start with Boston. And when did both of you get here? When did you just think about coming here for school or music, whatever brought you here? When did that start?
Get the senior discount because you came here before me, so you get to talk about it first.
Sure. Thank you. I came to Boston for the first time in January 2022. Uh, and I just came for college. I was living back home in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And yeah, my life was pretty different back then. And that was pretty much all I knew and the only place I had really lived in. So coming here was pretty challenging and different for sure. Like a complete different culture and life and world and like people from so many different cultures and so much diversity and so much going on. So yeah, it was back then, and it's been almost 3 years and a half now. So it has become quite familiar by now.
Cool.
Yeah. So I was always like, so kind in the contrast, I was always, born and raised in America, and and pretty much, I always lived in New Jersey. A lot of my exposure to music there was based off of like the dad rock, dad funk cover band scene, in New Jersey. It was one of the most abhorrent. Well, okay, I wouldn't call it abhorrent. I do have a soft spot for it, but it was probably some of the most like insufferable crowds I've ever had to like deal with. But eventually, I came here to Boston around, I'm gonna say like fall of 2022. So we actually, now that you mention it, I think we came in around the same time. It's wild to me. Right, yeah, because you already had like prior education beforehand, so of course you'd be like a little bit more advanced. But no, I came here around 2022 of like fall, and I just remember like being here, and there was one fateful session that I do recall, and I think that was in December of 2023, and that's when I first ran into Chai. So around that semester, we actually shared a class with Daedalus. Shout out Daedalus, we love them so much. And pretty much, I remember it was like this, like sound design for performance thing. And I remember seeing Chai and I think Mia Zeta, who's killing it right now. But shout out Mia for real. But I do remember Chai and I would like chop it up after class a little bit, and like we would just talk. Like I came to a show of theirs. So my first time really seeing Chai was at an Exit Gallery show that they did with Mia and VVN at the time. So I was just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is awesome. Fast forward maybe like a month or two later, I get a DM, or I think it was like a text from TJ. And TJ was like, yo, I think Chai is asking you to come into the session for like a song that they're doing for their project. I'm like, what the hell do they want me to do? And TJ brought up the idea of using the SP404 Mark II to run like essentially the master bus of the song while it was live recording through like an effect thing, which was my SP, but me being able to manipulate it live kind of made it like this whole thing. It was the song Fly High off of the Ganoush Collective record that I remember doing that around that time. And I think literally like after that, like Chai and I just started hanging out a little bit more because it was like, okay, we actually worked together. We had like a lot of cool ideas to be passed around. Then it kind of just became, because of Ganoush Collective the next semester, we really just started to be around each other a lot. And like we really started to get like closer as friends. And it was amazing. It was awesome.
When
Yeah.
I guess when did both of you start making music here then with people? Because I mean, Lilith, it sounds like this was when you got introduced to Chaiah's making music, but Chaiah, when did you like find a band and start, like when did you start networking essentially and finding people to collaborate with?
That's a good question. I think my first collaborative project ever was back home in Argentina with my friend Seferino. We did like this EP together, and we would just get together and do a bunch of music. He's a drummer, and I would play like guitar and other things, and we would like always like we spent like a year together just making music, and then actually kind of settled down to say let's make like a record, let's materialize this. So that was kind of like my first more so intimate experience of making music with someone. And then I guess the whole game really changed when I came to Berkeley, and I got to play with much like bigger um, projects and things, and like more settled down events and stuff. Yeah, it was kind of my first semester already. I met a couple people and friends that really introduced me and encouraged me to kind of start doing my own stuff here, like my individual independent like Chaiah project. And that was the first time I did my own thing. It was like 2022. And yeah, it really hasn't stopped since then. And I got to meet some of my dearest friends who I worked with a lot besides Lilith, like like Michael Dunaway and Lorenzo Kurik, aka Persona, Austin Wilson, Matthew Drake. Those were kind of like the real foundation of my group, and people I've always loved to make music with and felt very comfortable with. And yeah, it was just kind of like really inspiring to have some ideas in mind, have some musical compositions, bring them to a rehearsal, kind of like shedding them off, recording them, playing them live, like doing all sorts of things with those same ideas. There are so many possibilities that it felt like just forward and forward, and this ongoing energy that was really inspiring. That was it for me.
Okay, we're talking about collaborations. I got a couple people to really shout out here. When I first started back in 2020, back in New Jersey, so obviously, uh, disease happened, pestilence happened, COVID hit everywhere, and pretty much it kind of like forced me to really stay inside and like work on my music a lot of the time. When it came around that time, I remember one time I did a live set on Twitch TV for like a friend's like little like virtual festival. It was an SP404 set. I think I went for at least like 3 to 4 hours, just 3 to 4 hours of just pure garbage back then. Like I didn't know what I was making, but I enjoyed it a lot. And thankfully, you know, as they say, one man's trash is another man's treasure. Who happened to be in the chat at the time was my friend Jaja, who we now know as Geis Guevara at the time. I remember this is probably my first legitimate collaboration when it came to like working in music, because I do remember, you know, he messaged me when he was under his previous moniker beforehand. He was like, "Yo, really enjoy your stuff. I'm a rapper. Like, feel free to send me stuff." And I took a look and I was like, "Oh, whoa, this music's actually pretty good. Like, what's going on here?" And I just remember, like, you know, we would go back and forth a lot. We had talks about like making this tape at the time, but he went to make the album that essentially pushed him way up the charts in Rate Your Music and like Anthony Fantano's radar. Thankfully, one of those beats on the tape did make it onto the album, and that beat was called Rayman Legends off of There Will Be No Super Slave. Ever since
Great
then,
game.
you know, Jaja and I, yeah, Jaja and I have been like super close. Like we've met up in Philly a lot of the time. That dude's in Britain now. I don't know what the hell he's doing in the UK, but I'm happy for him. But you know, we hung out a lot during the summer. You know, we got to work on a lot of music. Just kind of, it was very passive. I would send him stuff, would wait a little bit, he'd send something back. I'd be like, cool, and then suddenly it would be on the album. Same thing kind of happened with his like most recent project too, with my good friend Eli, who co-produced that. But we're talking about Berkeley. I'd really have to say that my first collaboration had to deal with a drummer named Quinn Demena. Quinn Demena was somebody who lived not too far from me back in my hometown in New Jersey. Amazing drummer, one of the most talented like people I've ever had the pleasure of like living with and meeting. But he was my roommate, and we had this like ongoing bit about becoming like a duo where he'd play like electronic drums while I'd manipulate samples, and that shit was called Janitor's Closet. Like we bought like whole onesies and everything that kind of looked like we were a cleanup crew. Like there was so many talks, very ambitious project, and it's kind of been left off to the sidelines, but we're hoping to bring it back up. But that was really the first thing that kind of pushed me to start working with other people in Berkeley, because I threw a little event back at Bill's bar. I think it was called like Santos Summer Smackdown. It was so amateur. It was whatever. But I had some of my like favorite collaborators on there, featuring, you know, Annie Elise, Viv. You know, I had them perform, and it was like such a great experience that, you know, because of that, I met the right amount of people to start working with, like Kyle, was one of the more prominent figures in that show. Eli was one of those prominent figures in that show. And it kind of just turned out where it's just like, networking to me is just like making a bunch of friends at the same time and just really getting to know each person because, why would I contribute to your project if I don't know you and care about you on a personal level? I'm here to help out and like really see the project through and see my friends succeed. Eventually found my way to Chaiah, got into Ganush Collective, and essentially I ended up poaching a lot of those members in my own band as of recent. But it's also just been so rewarding because, Chai has taught me so much about how to be like a great leader, how to like lead things through, how to see things through, even if it like may break your back or destroy your sleep schedule at times. I really do appreciate everything that she has done for my growth and development as a person. And like, we just work so well together. And like, I just appreciate her company nonetheless.
That's so sweet.
Y'all have mentioned it, but I want to hear it explained from either of you. Tell me more. What is Ganush Collective? Like, when did it start? Who's in it? What's the mission there?
Want some mate?
Yeah, I'll take some.
Okay, I'll just some mate before answering this. Ganush Collective is a collective of composers, artists, producers, mixers, sound designers, all sorts of music art. It's 10 people, and yeah, it's people kind of from all over. There's some members from the US, some from India, Spain, Argentina. Like, it's very diverse, and I feel like each person brings their own thing, which is pretty awesome because that's what makes it such a varied palette of things. And yeah, it started out at Berkeley. There's this electronic hip hop and R&B ensemble space that's kind of like a space, an ensemble that takes place every week in the same same time, same place. 9 a.m. Tuesdays. I think it was 9 a.m. Mondays actually.
Oh yeah, no wonder I hated it.
9 a.m. Mondays. So it was really like you had to be committed to it. There was this space mentored by the already mentioned Daedalus, who has been helping us out so much as all. And it was kind of led by students and by ourselves, so we could do our own thing with that space, with that 2-hour space each week. And we basically decided to work on our own compositions and have each member bring a composition, just make it this whole song and like arrange it together, produce it together, and then kind of share it with the world. And yeah, it's been pretty fun. We've done a couple of shows, we've released a couple of songs, and the goal and the idea is to release all 10 tracks probably by the end of this year, so that gets kind of materialized forever.
That's awesome. And now
Pretty much that.
And I feel like so we could find Ganush Collective between the band that and the artists you used for your album, as well as Lilith, who you're using for your upcoming live album or live band album.
Yeah, we all really collaborate with everyone. Like, so some of the members of Ganush, Austin and Lorenzo, and this other guy, guitarist called Jack, who's very talented guitarist, they released an album, and they also collaborate with a bunch of Ganush people and a bunch of people. It's all collaboration all over, everywhere.
That's awesome. I
recommend that people check out that album.
What's the album?
The album is called Lost Satellite.
Lost Satellite, cool. So I want to ask y'all overall, like not even just within your own circles, curious on your thoughts on just the Boston music scene. Like, you've both been here now a few years. I want to know what you've enjoyed, what you wish there was more of, how your experiences as performers, anything you want to give me.
Okay, I could definitely speak from a little bit more of like electronic standpoint. Chai would probably be able to give more insight from a band standpoint, considering I'm a little bit more new to this. You know, it's kind of my first rodeo regarding but something I could give you. I do enjoy how people do really show up for each other, especially around in the circles that we're in. It's very much like focused on like love and everything else regarding that. And through my time here in Boston, I've encountered some pretty fun people. I've also encountered some like really interesting characters. There was this like one event that I went to, played like a hip hop set. It was super fun. It was like whatever, like like yeah, just doing the thing. And like these two guys came up to me and they were like, "Wow, like that was like so like do you listen to like Merzbow?" Like completely unrelated to like whatever set I just played. And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I listen to Merzbow. Like I love the noise scene." And they were like, "Yeah, that's like literally all we listen to." So like I just don't, it was like it was super interesting to see your performance. I was like, that's all you listen to? Like, oh my gosh. But kind of interesting segue to a lot of the scenes that I've seen here. I don't really want to talk about the underground scene so much, not in the sense of like gatekeeping it, but purely because I do want to like I just want to accentuate how important and sacred these kinds of spaces are. Like a lot of great underground bands and like electronic acts here that like I feel like have yet to see the light of day, and at the same time there's something so beautiful and sacred about the practice that they have. I have a couple people to shout out regarding that. I really enjoyed Ruby's work. I've really enjoyed Barbie AI's work, Incognito Thief's work. um I really love the Gabbers. Shout out them. Shout out like Yancey and like Adapt. Like there's a lot of great like things out there, and as much as I want to say more about them, it's really something that you have to experience for yourself. The Boston scene is always changing, especially in the electronic realm. I encourage anyone who is like trying to find it, just like be in the right places. Go support your friends. Maybe you'll find yourself in the right place at the right time, and you'll know about more of these things that are going on. Go Chai.
Yeah, kind of pointing to what Lilith was saying, I do agree that the underground scene and the underground music in Boston is pretty sacred. I think that's what has impacted me the most, and where I found the most community, and I found ways of creating art that I hadn't seen before. Very forward thinking kind of artists and groups and things. I think there's a lot in the underground. Of course, then there are these massive artists that are fire as well, and you can go to this venues to see big concerts and get your mind blown, and it's super inspiring. But I would definitely say my experience has been mostly shaped by the underground scene and the people you can talk to and collaborate with, and keep on going to their shows and keep on going to their things and learning more and more from them, and kind of have this interdisciplinary thing, this reciprocated thing. I think that's very beautiful.
When you both say underground, are we talking like DIY shows? Are we talking more, well, that and like the smaller venues that are more independent? Maybe like, I know Chaiah, you performed at like a thrift store last year, which seemed like a really cool venue space. So are we talking like things like that? Or are we talking like invite only? Both?
Definitely just hard to access. Admittedly, hard to access. I feel like it could be over encompassing for everything. It really depends on how well people promote here. Not to make it about like promotion or anything, just a matter of like how many times do you hear it and how many times do you have to hear it in order for it to pique your interest. Like there are people using info lines. There are people using like literally hanging up posters with QR codes that'll like show like a really weird website and an address. One of my favorite examples actually. Shout out Thief. He made this website for this house show that I played, and there was like a QR puzzle code. If you like found the website link, you would have to like move the puzzle around until you got the QR code, which would show you the address and how to get into the house. Like there are people like finding beautiful ways and like nuanced ways to like get into them, and I feel like it's just very much like it's hard to access 100%. It's not like a venue show that you would get like the Roadrunner or Brighton Music Hall, your Bills Bar, or anything regarding like those like show series and everything. Just like go out, like figure it out. You'll definitely hear about it. You'll find out which places run the most, but it's definitely a matter of accessibility and how easy it is to get from point A to point B as fast as you can.
When um you mentioned a lot about access, and obviously music being accessible is such a big thing in like current climate. I mean, for good and bad. We see Spotify's and the streaming platforms that make it so accessible that artists get paid less. And then there's of course the flip side of making things a little less accessible to create like a safe space. Curious if you guys have any thoughts about that, because I think it's so interesting that venues have to become less accessible to kind of protect them a bit. But in this world where people want to get their music out and found, have you seen that affect that? Like, essentially, how does underground music see the light a bit more and get the love if these spaces are a little tougher to access?
Yeah, that's very interesting. It makes me think. I guess from my point of view, there's something kind of beautiful where artists do get the love in like people taking the time and effort to like go to these things or listen to their musics in a cassette or in a CD or like this stuff. Every Deja Vu goes on so much. It's like, or even in a vinyl, it's like you have to listen to the whole thing in a world where things are going so fast and everything's so immediate, and people are like going to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and everything is very immediate and entertainment based. There's something very beautiful in taking the time to go to this kind of secretive show in buying this merch from this artist that is kind of growing, in having a conversation with an artist that just did a performance that blew your mind. There's so many ways this more so horizontal kind of community that I think make it so worth it in the end. But probably you also have a take on this.
Yeah, absolutely. Not necessarily a controversial take, but kind of like piggybacking off of your idea too. I feel like a lot of artists have lost the value of patience purely because of the climate that we are subject to. I wouldn't even say that we find ourselves in, because we are quite literally subject to it. You know, with the nature of having our phones on us all the time, access to technology. You know, it could be a great thing, but at the same time, it could be so poisoning if left unchecked. I've seen some of the greatest minds of the generation be completely like, like completely bent down over to like you know, algorithm and things like that. And I feel like, with these underground like, shows and stuff, and like, being able to like really take the time to figure out and know these artists, kind of builds this layer of authenticity to the work. People are doing things the way that they truly want to. And although it may not be quote unquote successful in the sense of like the big market scale, there's something much more fulfilling that lies inside that I feel like a lot of these artists who are trying to move fast aren't really getting because of that. I mean, for example, for like a lot, I'll use myself for an example and then I'll use someone else. I spent around 6 months of my life. I could have released the album May Every Shape Hold much earlier than I needed to. I literally spent like 6 months of my life literally making a dating sim that would go around it, because I love visual novels and video games so much. That's just who I am as a person, and I've wanted to do that for the longest time. Cost me a lot. It cost us a lot, absolutely. But I have no regrets making it, because I feel like it was definitely something that was like true to myself, and I was able to really present it. And the people that it really connected with, I can say they are like completely like loyal to like whatever projects I have now coming forward. And I feel like just being able to take the time and not really bending your knee to like anything that, maybe these like big corporations or like, big things like Spotify or Instagram are trying to push onto you. Even though it might be a little bit slower, you are slowly building a mountain rather than a bunch of anthills in the middle of the street. And I would rather have something foundationally strong rather than something that is just like, guys, check, did I just make the song of the summer? Guys, please check this out. Guys, please pre-save this. Like, I'm begging you. Like, if people want to interact with the art, let them interact with the art. People are not entitled to that, but we should be grateful that some people choose to interact with that to begin with.
Right. I feel like from a like consumer perspective, kind of Lilith, you kind of touched on this, but like they resonate with artists who put in like that type of passion into their work and don't have this maybe copy paste facade that a lot of artists have, that the corporations, the social media, whatever, like really pushes to like incentivize sort of like getting you out there. Like, yeah, I think to your point, yeah, I made the song of the summer. Very like common strategy, I think, for a bit. And I guess it probably works, but there is sort of like a, oh, that's the artist you are. And it might, like, I think consumers who do appreciate kind of maybe more authenticity can see that and can see through that. Not to say there's one bad way or another. I feel like artists out there right now are kind of dealing with trying to figure this out all on their own. And I've spoken to both of you in different times and over months and months of like, how do we promote this? What are the best ways? What feels authentic? What do you feel comfortable with? Because I think that's what it comes down to. Like, you just put yourself out there. Yourself is out there in the music. Put yourself out there however else you want to. And I think people are going to find that and resonate with it. And I think that kind of goes to show also in the live performance area too. But yeah, I think I want to talk a little bit more about that. But I actually really, I kind of heard something earlier that I want to talk to Chaiah about control release and the live shows surrounding that. Doing shows in Argentina, Spain, like how all that was like surrounding your release. Because I think, I mean, I've seen you perform live here in Boston. So I'm curious kind of what it's like performing in different spaces, carrying your album around, what that's like, the different crowd reactions. What were those performances like?
Okay, awesome. Yeah, exciting. So yeah, I think they were all very different performances and contexts and audiences. In Spain, I got to perform some of the tracks of the album with this really great group of some friends of mine that were traveling with me at the time and some Valencian local people that were playing in the conservatory that were down to play the music and performed it beautifully. We played in this stage in the middle of this park that was like a public park for anyone to come. So a lot of heads showed up and I didn't know anyone. And it was really interesting because it was like all these people, this crowd that I had never seen in this kind of unknown country that I hadn't really been in either. So it was a lot of fun and I think people really appreciated, and it was nice that I could also get to speak in Spanish and interact with them in a language that felt very natural, and I think they appreciated that too because most of the acts in that stage are usually people like that come from the US or from other countries speaking English, and they were like, "Oh, okay, like we have someone speaking our own thing," and it was cool. Um yeah, people were just like either standing and vibing to it or like laying in the park and listening to it. And a couple heads came afterwards and said some beautiful stuff and reached out, and then we've continued on listening to the record and the things and I don't know, got to know some new people, which was amazing. And I really appreciate when people that you don't know actually take the time to reach out and like say how your music made them feel. I think that's like the best feeling in the world. It's like, oh, that's fire. Like this touched someone's heart. And I had no clue like what their path is, what they're going through, what their life is like, but it touched them and it helped them somehow. So my day is 100 times better now. That was like in Spain. In Argentina, it was different because well, I know a bunch of people there and it's a more it's home, you know. We play this show with my group and with Bianca Cavili's group, who's a great friend, amazing artist, who also just released her album, Te Cuento, recommended. And yeah, I think it was the biggest show we ever played there for our original music. There were more than like 100 tickets sold, and we were there and we were presenting my album, and it was so beautiful. I think something I really appreciate about Argentinians' culture is that they take they kind of clear their whole night out for like an event or an album and a thing. It's not just like I go to see this show and then I leave and I go do my thing, but it was like they all came to see the show and then we all like partied, hanged out till like 5 a.m. and like
It's awesome.
it feels like a whole celebration night rather than just an event or like something in a calendar. It's like people really do take the time. And it was really beautiful. I really like that show, and it was like just after the album was released, so it was really special. I really really liked it, especially being at the end of the year where everyone is kind of burnt out and a lot of hits showed up. And yeah, then the shows in Boston, I mean, they're great. It's the all the people. No, truly, it's all the people who I made this music with. So I think it resonates in a deeper way because they're also the people who are actually and actively a part of the music making of this record. But yeah, more shows to come in Boston and in New York for Control release. That's pretty much all.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
it for I hope you get to do more shows in Boston before you go. Or at least come back and do some. Um I am curious to talk a little bit more about Control Release and how long that's been in the works. And has it always been like a full band sort of project, or was it kind of like I could do this all on my own and stuff for a bit at first?
Um, I kind of really took my time with the making of it, and it wasn't such a linear process as like I'm gonna take 1 month to compose all the songs or I'm gonna take 1 month to record all the songs. It was more so like I recorded and composed some songs in certain months and worked on them, and then 2 months after I worked on these songs and worked on them. So each season of the album making was pretty different. Once everything was pretty recorded and I went to Spain, there were a couple more tracks I wanted to work on that I've worked on by myself, but I always had the inside of some of my closest friends, like Lilith, and who I would always like seek advice from, like, yo, like, what do you think the order should be? Like, I'm thinking this and this, but like your DJ standpoint of view will help me, like, the transitions, the things, and like I would take her word very seriously. And so Austin, he helped me so much with the record. Martina Schende, who mixed a bunch of it and who also helped me. I think a lot of his print and his sound is in it. So there were moments where I composed some tracks pretty much like chill in my room, like Isis or something. But there are some others that were thought pretty much live band based. I think you can hear both sounds in the album, kind of like I've recorded instrumentation, like well played together, and some stuff that feel very digital in the box kind of vibe. Honey Please was like SP 404. Shout out, today is the SP 404 day, and Lilith is performing for Roland. Yo, that's big.
We made Honey Please completely tipsy off of wine one night. And I remember I was like, oh, it would be really funny if I like used your like unreleased songs as samples. And then I straight up just did that. And then I think you liked it a lot. And there was a lot of trouble finding the original samples because I think I lost all the files. So I was drunk.
Oh
So
no.
we had to essentially, we had to like remake a lot of it. And successfully, unsuccessfully, but we managed to get that part out. That was fun.
Yeah, there was this cool thing that Lilith just mentioned, that basically for a couple of the tracks, we sampled some of the songs from the record that our live band recorded and made them with the SP404 into a hip hop production digital kind of based thing, but using like our own samples from the live instrument. So it felt like a recycling generative process that was kind of beautiful because it was coming kind of from the same soul, the same place, a well known felt thing. SP404.
So wait, it's
So
a
we have
go ahead. Oh hell yeah. It's like a little family.
our this is our children. I literally didn't know this machine before Lilith. Lilith put me onto this, and it's changed so many things, and I've been using it so much.
I
Such a
have
cool device.
I've never used one, but I have seen so many
Mm.
people use them, and it always comes down to like how it becomes such an integral part of like the way they make music, the way the live performances. I feel like it's so powerful in that way. Um, this is a question for either of you. Uh, how tell me why the 404 is so special?
I think
Why
Lilith,
we
yeah.
celebrate a 404 day? What influenced you to get one? Well, Chai, you just said Lilith. Yeah, tell me.
Okay, yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit more about this machine right here. So when I first started out with the 404, I remember I had originally seen a video of Bad Snacks, shout out Jesse, essentially show off the SP404SX. And I remember I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. Essentially, it became my gateway to like the 2015, 2016 SoundCloud beat scene era in the West Coast. I'm talking heads up like Anu, Knowledge, DiBiase, Ali, Obliv. I'm talking like like Pop Tart Pete, Tuami, like all of these heads who are like amazing and such. Essentially paved the way for this. Essentially, this old machine right here was pretty important in like the production and more importantly performances were documented pretty heavily around 2016 and 2015 when it came to that. I ran across a lot of these kinds of things. They essentially, I think because of how like swag it looked, I wanted to do it so badly. So I essentially, my parents gifted me one because I think they saw me like essentially watching the same set over and over at one point during COVID. Like, yeah, try this out. Tried it out. I was like, this is the best thing ever. Immediately like integrated it into my workflow. I still like half of those beats on My Every Shape Hold are still from the SP. A lot of those sketches were made because I was like, I had my thing plugged in and I was like, let me just like make something real quick.
Real quick.
Real quick.
Lilith will make it. If Lilith will do something, she will make it real quick. It's so funny. We always joke around this meme that is like people with Ableton does like how they produce and how they work in their workflow, and it's like all sweating with all the shortcuts on like super fast and stuff. And yeah, it's funny. It's so nice. I remember once we were doing a hangout here in my place, and we went downstairs to the porch to get some air or something, and it was like so late at night, and I think Lilith and a couple of her friends were waiting for an Uber literally in the street, and it was like a 4 or 5 minute wait, and Lilith pulls out her computer and starts making a beat while waiting for the Uber for like 5 minutes, and it's like, this is insane.
That midnight
It's literally
motivation,
like
you know.
4 minutes. Midnight motivation. Anytime motivation. I think the mornings are pretty great too.
Be working at the weird parts of the night. I'm talking like 3 to 5 a.m. That's where like my best stuff is made, honestly. Now back on the 404, I mean like this has been so influential to me. I mean, maybe like all the legends and stuff can speak for themselves because they have their stories to tell with this. They were there during the conception of it. I have to endlessly thank them for essentially showing me the way for this with this kind of machine because I think this is unlike any piece of gear that anyone has owned. Like now it's like probably at its like best stage right now with like being able to update this. Yo, Roland, if you're hearing this isn't sponsored by the way. I'm like I genuinely will glaze the hell out of this machine. This is just genuinely one of my favorite things ever, purely because of its versatility. I love performing with it. It's an audio interface. Like what's up with that? That's so wild. And I think just like really like looking at it, just like the entire like scope of things, especially with like imagine like the vision with people when they see somebody like performing all of these like heavy, almost like futuristic ass beats on like a single box. Like there's no laptops, there's no like fancy things that kind of are like promoted. It's literally just this box, this doohickey, this little thingamajig. It's so wild to me, and like I'm just endlessly like grateful that it like came into my life that way.
Speaking of gear, Chaya, what do you have a piece of gear? I mean, I know you play guitar, obviously, but like, so there's a piece of gear that you love that has changed your music, instrument gear, even like a cable. I don't know what you got.
Um, I mean, I love my guitar, the one I use the most, the Teisco Del Rey semi-hollow guitar. It's kind of like this red body. I love it. Accompanies me everywhere. I've taken her to all these shows. I do a bunch of things in the box, honestly, like use a bunch of plugins and a bunch of things in there regarding materialized gear outside. Yeah, I've my whole teenage years and like a bunch of the music I've made has always been affected by this pedal board, this Bose ME80 pedal box. I'm watching it right now. Has so many things, and you can kind of like sound design your own thing. That has been very helpful. You can also loop ideas, and like it's been very inspiring. Yeah, I think more than the gear, it's like what you do with the gear. I'm just thankful I have kind of like my own set right here, and my speakers. I live off my speakers. They're my life, my entire life. I'm always listening to music, and being able to do that, it's just makes the whole creative process easier. But I think regardless of what you do and what you have, the creative process can come to you in different ways, regardless of the gear.
Right. For
Your past.
oh, I do have another question for you, Chaiah. I think I'm curious
Yeah.
as someone who I played guitar growing up, and then I had a couple pedals. Then I produced a little bit of music. I dabbled in a little bit of everything, but I always wondered.
Didn't know this about you, right?
Yeah, there's a guitar right over here.
Oh, that's a fire. You need to show me.
There's. I was always curious because I grew up before kind of like. I mean, Ableton was probably a thing, but it was like Ableton like 1 or something. Like, and I wasn't downloading that yet. Like, I think I started on FL Studio, and learning what plugins was to me was always like, oh, this is just a guitar pedal. Like, I'm just throwing like a guitar pedal on like my effects. I'm curious to hear
Same.
from you. Is it do you think it's the same thing, or what do you feel is the difference, especially maybe like live or recording, when you have your pedals in front of you versus like the different cool plugins that people are making and companies are making, things like that?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I think for vocal stuff or like sax stuff or stuff that goes through a microphone, having all your plugins in your computer might be like a great way to go about it, because you just have your own like sound effect racks, and you can take them with your computer everywhere, and you can variate them, and it works really well for like live vocal processing or mic processing. I think that's a really cool way to go, and it really works out. I think regarding like bass, guitar, keys, and some other stuff, you can still do that for sure. But there's something about having things tangible in the tips of your fingers that just feels different. I also feel that way with like recording in a studio and like doing some processing in the console with my fingers and EQing some frequency out with like a knob, and doing stuff with my faders and my fingers, and not having always to look at a screen, but rather, I don't know, with guitar pedals, feeling the beat and the pulse in your feet, and then like going on with that. And like, I guess, yeah, people do appreciate not using screens as much and having the things handy. And there's also something about some old sounds, some tape sounds, some console sounds that are just unique. And yeah, for my workflow, I really like working in kind of like a hybrid of analog and digital. And I think pedals for live stuff are awesome, and it's just so beautiful to see as a consumer as well, and to hear and to interact with it. And I think for more so a post-production standpoint, digital stuff, plugins, like going very detailed on each automation knob thing and having that all saved in a DAW in a computer makes a lot of sense and makes the organization quite more helpful and easier.
Cool. Yeah. I think I always find it so interesting when a live performance has like there's just a guitarist or there's somebody who just has a pedal board in front of them, and it's either it could be like 3
Yeah.
pedals or it could be like 10 pedals, and I'm like, what the hell are you using all those for? And like that's a compliment. I'm like, that's so cool to me that you have this setup. and I don't know, it's something I always personally cherished. Um,
Those are
I
great.
right, exactly. Question for
Oh, there's some that's great.
yeah, do you have, well, either you, I could just I guess Lilith can answer that first, and then Chaya. Favorite plugin, and or pedal for things that you do. So I figure that the pedal's more for Chaya, but for you, do you have like a favorite plugin when you're making music? A cheat code potentially to like get a certain sound you like. I know there was this reverb plugin I used to love on Ableton. I don't remember who it was by, but I just remember it like it just had like the perfect settings that got the reverb I liked personally, as well as some like guitar amp stuff. But yeah, just curious.
Yo, Chai's gonna hate me. You're gonna hate me for this answer, honestly. Um, I'm the type of motherfucker to put two limiters on my master. Honest to God, I be boosting that shit 6 decibels each. Um, I just ultra compression in like the worst way possible. Like I need my stuff to sound like abhor. I need my shit to sound kind of abhorrent because I just love all the weird like transients and like different kind of artifacts that you could get from it from like completely pushing it to the limit. Um, that and if we talk in like real plugins, because that is a real plugin. Let me clarify that. You keep laughing.
No, I'm
That's funny.
Lilith has this very loyal and amazing thing that is that she uses all built-in Ableton plugins. She doesn't have like third-party plugins. She uses everything that is in the DAW and that was given to her, and she makes like the best out of it. And I find that very cool.
I know Ruby and I share the same sentiments regarding that. There's so many like different ways you could just fuck up like the most basic reverb in like in Ableton by just like having like a couple of like external controllers to it. But I think my favorite plugin has got to go to the Datalist triple drum bus. Um, completely just boosts the transients to all hell. But my gosh, on like certain types of music, it just kind of brings out this almost primal like energy when it comes to this. I think of like turning from kitty to like like fierce tiger. I'm like talking about like a punch that you feel like 5 seconds after. You know what I mean? I'm talking like this that thing that completely would if I'm gonna listen, if I'm gonna send my stuff to like master, I kind of want to make my shit sound shitty, like because they're gonna like disagree with me. Chai and I have this like ongoing bit where like she'll like ask me like, hey, like so like what did you use on this beat? Like what did you use on your master chain? Like how did you master this? And I'll like open up the master bus and there's just like one limiter there with like a 6 dB like increase on it. And like Chai would like look at me and be like, my teachers would hate you for this. Like they would like push you.
That's not true. Actually, I've been getting on the limiters in the mix bus too, and it's pretty cool. It really depends on your approach to mixing and things. Of the stuff I use a lot that I think make some of my sound are like a bunch of compressors, like SSL compressors, decapitators, some toys, Valhalla reverbs, delays, crystallizers. It's making things wide and sound a little more weird. And in Ableton, I love some things also like the OTT, auto shift, pitch loop, drum bus, chorus ensemble, autoband. So many things you can use in so many creative ways. I think whatever DAW and tool like just helps you get to your finish line or your vision. You're like, you get this sound and you want it to sound like this. It's like, what do I have to do to make this? And just getting to it, I think it's really inspiring when it gets easier to find that path. And yeah, it's like, I don't think it's about having 1,000 plugins or having 1,000 like samples and be searching for that plugin or that sample or that thing. That it's not like the thing will not make the song incredible. It's how you use it, and it's how well you learn to use the few things you have. If you really like grind them, then yeah, then you're chill. Then you're chill. Then it's that's what you need. You don't need 1,000 plugins, 1,000 samples. you just
Yes.
need what you need. It's about how to navigate those. Yeah,
Chat wants to know what about
it's
2,000
the
samples?
2,000 some. It's a lot. Some people spend a lot of time looking for samples. I've never had like Splice or any of those things. Um, no,
Oh,
Oh, I could take the
no
next hour
shade.
just to talk about Splice and in a bad way, but we can move on.
No shade, no shade. I just I have the samples I love and like some of the sounds and references I go to and I work with, and like I think less is more sometimes, less is more. And I like this idea of like sometimes, I don't know, you're working on a song and you want to find this like bird sounds or this thing, and instead of like just going to Splice and looking for that sound, maybe like going to this movie you watched once that has this bird sounds that you thought were cool, and recording those and bringing those in, like have a more personal searching and insight on what sounds you want in your music and why you choose them and what's the source they come from, like it all being more genuine. I think that makes it like, I know it breathes better with you and your music. I think there's something cool of taking the time and also having like this amount of samples, this amount of things, and working with those. And it's like, well, you got this. What are you gonna go do with this? And I think that can be quite interesting.
Yo, what's up, Ravon? I see you in chat right now, bruh.
Bird sounds. Are you even a real artist?
Yeah.
I
Yeah, this is all you.
I think
Okay.
I think a lot of what you're touching on too is a lot relates to a lot of what I wanted to ask y'all about raw mate, because I feel like I've watched a few of those episodes. You bring in some friends, but also you two always there, and there's always amazing music at all sorts of different genres. Shout out to Yerba Mate, and I think I'm curious, just like I want to hear about both of your experiences on where did the show come from and your just relationship, like sharing this music, where like how are you picking out this music, and just more about the friends that you bring in for that.
Um. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, we really like this space we've created. I got back to the US like a couple months ago, and we got really excited and we wanted to work on a bunch of stuff together, and we were like, let's make a radio show. Like we've always been inspired by radio shows as like Breakfast with Ringo by Mind Design and some other radio shows that felt very much like safe space to just share music and hang out. And I think we've also always been kind of inspired by each other's taste in music, and we're always creating collaborative playlists like all the time. We have a bunch of those, and it's stuff we enjoy a lot. So we just thought it would be cool to share it, and not only our taste or our take on music, or things we were finding and checking out and seeing like, oh, this approach to art is really cool. This record is really nice, but also records the people around us have been inspired by and that wanted to share, and kind of creating this space community hang to share records. I think so many people find themselves stuck like in the same playlist, the same songs, like repeating the same things, and finding an alternative way to share music and get to know new stuff.
Yeah. Genuine, like like all my answers have been pretty genuine, but this one I really am pretty passionate about raw mate too. I do challenge myself every week or like whenever we do the show now because life has gotten a little bit busier. But with that being said, I do try to challenge myself to try to find something new to bring to like each of the playlists every time that we've done. Every the first episode we had, we were like literally only playing like Japanese jazz fusion, like fusion, all of that kind of stuff, and like a lot of like Argentinian like rock, and like it's shifted into like its own little thing. And as soon, oh, someone's calling me. Okay, but as soon as that kind of happens, as soon as more people are involved, it's very interesting because now you live so much in this community, especially in like Berkeley and like how everything works like that. On top of that, you don't really prioritize the hang as much, especially in that school. A lot of people don't really prioritize the hang. They're looking for something a little bit more like objective or anything relating to just like getting something done. People don't take the time, kind of going back on our idea of patience, to really just sit with each other, like, get to know each other, and like just listen to some good music. And I feel like with Raw Mate, I'm really glad that we were able to accomplish that with like a lot of the guests that we bring on, because not only are they just like amazing musicians in their own right, like Matthew Drake has an amazing solo project. Trey Tarzi is one of the best drummers I know. Marilyn Simone is just like literally on the come up with all of this kind of stuff. But there are also our friends, and every time they bring in music, I learn something new about them. Like I didn't know Trey, my literal roommate, knew about Salami Rose Joe Lewis on episode 2. And I could only get that because we took the time to, I mean, as much as it's recorded, a lot of the interactions are pretty genuine. It's just like, hey, this is a great song. Oh my gosh, something like happened here in the middle of this song. This is what I think about it. Being able to hear all of these differing opinions and different like worldviews and stories, and like how a song might be interpreted, even in our own circles, a completely different way from one person to the other. It's a very human thing. And I'm really glad like Chai and I were able to really collect that in each of our episodes.
Yeah, I feel I brought mostly that up because I think music discovery, sampling goes so hand in hand that like I feel like the passion for sampling comes from like finding really cool music and wanting to share that, wanting to mess with it, wanting to like really break it down, and also kind of pushing boundaries a little bit. How do you two find music? Like, what is like where are you starting? Is it friend recommendations, YouTube, SoundCloud? Like, is there any vinyls? Like, what is the way you go about it?
Okay, I'm gonna find an image and I'm gonna explain it in the most like rudimentary way possible. I gotta find it. It's a very important image in my opinion because it's exactly how I find my music, pretty much. I be on the internet. You know me. I'm on the internet like that. Let me see if I could find it, and if not, I'll probably just explain it like a normal person. But I swear to God, it's so important to have this image to represent this. Hold on, let me see. Okay, maybe I can't find it right. Well, maybe it's okay. Anyways, I'll just answer it normally. A lot of it is just a combination of, for me at least, just being around people and like the set. Actually, surprisingly, the people in set lists when I find myself, like the sets that I find myself in, like bills that I'm in. Surprisingly, you get to talk to the artists. I always try my best to try to pick their brain as much as I can while I'm in the same space as them. I get a recommendation or two, then I get sent on a rabbit hole. I also really enjoy just going on YouTube. I've always been a YouTube crate digger kind of person. I've always, that's just the way I've operated since 2020 when I started like this like project here, and it's still very prominent in my practice now. But with the addition of like having like people in my life who just have all sorts of stories to tell, and like the kinds of like connections that they have with this kind of music, I find myself being more delicate with each of these samples rather than just like rummaging through it the entire time. It's very much like, oh, Chai has a very like interesting relation to Home Shake around high school. She found this certain album in high school. Let me check it out. Oh my gosh, wait, there was another Home Shake album around this same vein that I discovered during my high school years. And now all of that music for me has been much more like deified in some kind of like sick twisted sense. It's like, wow, like my friends really care about this music. I should care about it too.
Um, I think for me, growing up, especially when I was a teenager and I was starting to really study music, it was a lot about going to jazz gigs back home in Argentina and just seeing these musicians, getting to know them, and I would be very inspired. Groups like Roman, Ramiro Flores, Fernandez Cuatro, really talented musicians doing very like innovative music, pioneers of their own sound, like jazz, hip hop, R&B, modern, electronic, like crazy stuff. And then I would find what some of the musicians involved in those projects would work on other projects, and I would get to know those other projects, and also kind of like studying with people and having jazz teachers or guitar teachers or production teachers that would show me music, and I would listen to those records. And I guess it's this very like collaborative thing, this very like um voice to voice thing, like someone recommended this to you and you recommend this to someone. I think there's a lot of that in, yeah, discovering things by yourself, or you are always inspired by this artist and then they feature another artist you've never heard of and you discover that other artist, and like so on and so on. It's like this infinite line of artists and albums and things, and yeah, just going like tangents of things. Yeah, pretty much.
To bring it back to like your music, can you pinpoint certain influences of like albums or artists that impact, like that essentially made up what Control Release became? Of course, you have your own influence on your own music, but there's always like, I think like an album or like a song that like kind of brings things to life for you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think my music and anyone's music is like a collection of this palette of so many influences, so that makes so much sense. Definitely some of the records that have inspired me most. One of the records is Bad Bad Not Good, like their fourth record or their third record as well. Like those records changed my life forever. Like like that's it. And I think you can hear it in some of them, or jazzy tracks like Meaning or like Control Release or some of those. Definitely some mind design and more of the sampling stuff, more of the stuff we did with Lilith. I think Taylor McFerrin and his record Early Riser, that was one of the records that the first time I heard, I was like, whoa, I would really want to make a record that feels like this someday. So I think that was always kind of like a reference for me as well. As not so much as the instrumentation or the way that things were processed, but as the way it made me feel. Um, Hiatus Coyote, definitely. I try to do some of the vocal presence in some of the songs and the VCVs and stuff like beyond, like mixing some of that reference with some crazy drums, more like Joseph Dias oriented, with some sound design, more like Pablo Burstein from Argentina oriented. Like there's so many things. And I think there's so many influences from so many records that it comes to this point where it's its own thing. It's an unrecognizable thing because it has so many things of so many others. Yes, I think all of that. Always, of course, influenced by my friends and their music as well, as they put so much of their heart and their playing into the record. So there's a lot of their sound as well.
I love that Taylor McFerrin record. You kind of just reminded me that like how much I used to listen to it years ago, and
Yeah,
I need to go back to that.
that record it will never get old.
No, I saw him live at Three
You know?
Points in Miami a long time ago. Incredible performance.
It was good.
Um, yeah, it was amazing. Lilith, same question for you, and a good segue. We haven't even had much of a time to talk about your album that we released in February, May Every Shape Hold. Can you cite some influences that made up that album for you?
Absolutely. Well, this is gonna sound really niche relative to Chai's stuff, but I'm very grateful for these records too. They entered my life. I'm gonna start off with Knowledge Hood Dreams, released on Stone's Throw 2015. That was probably one of my first albums I really like started listening to get into like the underground hip hop scene, or like just like really start to dig in further. But I remember there was always a time, and I really felt this way when I released it now, but there was always this thought of I need to make something along this level of quality when it came to that kind of stuff, because it was just like just a beat tape, sure. Maybe there was like a theme, maybe there wasn't. I just enjoyed the idea of just having such a strong piece of work with some like maybe amazing features at the beginning and end. It's like, okay, like if I can do a producer project like that, then I would feel pretty satisfied with my work, and I know I would want to like move on creatively to like bigger or like different things. Another album I would like to thank, Obliv's Loose Joints 5. Just an amazing hip hop record. Have that on cassette. Shout out to my friend Bunny. They gave it to me graciously as like a birthday gift. But it's probably my favorite Obliv album of all time. Just purely how, just like loving all of the beat sound. It was a very big influence in how I approached it. Shout out Cold Plush Toys work, more specifically Nia Parable Archives. Just a very amazing soul hop artist, kind of niche, but also pretty popular within that niche. Just an amazing producer. Would love to cite them. In terms of friends that have influenced me, a lot of it has been influenced off of people like Kylos as of recent. In terms of that album, pretty much Kylo, like, the entire framework of that album. I'm talking about like the second track, "Can't Stand You," and "Eyes." Those two tracks were probably the first two tracks that kind of came in mind in terms of like setting up the theme of the entire album. And next thing you know, I was sampling "Stand" off of that. So just all of like the singles and stuff that came through with that were pretty impressive. And then also shout out shout out Japan. Shout out Japan. I gotta shout out the label head from that. Shout out Japan. Mysterious dude, but I have like nothing but like love for that dude. He just makes influenced a lot of my. I was listening to his music before I knew it was him on the label at some point. More specifically, I think it was the album with Wonder on it. One of my favorite like pieces of like work ever. He just knows how to pull at the heartstrings, even with like some of the most minimal stuff possible. All of those coalesce, and obviously my friends. I mean, like as Chai asked me for input, I asked her for some input when it came to that album, and just like listening to it. She was like, like, oh, like, what do you think about this? Or like, said very small things, and it's always like very much appreciated.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel like you being a fan of Japan, we talked about, but it just makes sense of what you were mentioning earlier, like the 2015, 2016 SoundCloud. Like, it was hard to avoid him during that time with the amount of music he was putting out. Speaking of May Every Shape Hold, can you tell me a little bit more about that? What was like the story behind it? You mentioned you had a whole dating sim, but we didn't kind of get into why you had a dating sim, the story behind that, the story behind the album.
Okay. Imagine this. Just we started our little work, we started our little relationship over the summer, Ryan, right? We talked about it, finally got on board when it came to that. I get called for a gig in Atlanta, actually. And like we're just starting to talk, and like I didn't know where my next project was gonna be, we gotta frame it up here. So as I'm leaving to go back home to New Jersey, this person follows me on Instagram. Her name is Elfie, amazing artist. I think their Instagram handle is salt.crate. Just an amazing visual artist. They came to this was their like one of the first days that they were in America. They pulled up to the one that I played and then followed me after. I checked out their art. It was like, this is some of the best things I've ever seen here. So I remember I was like, oh my gosh, like I was playing a bunch of visual novels. I think I was playing Doki Doki Literature Club. I had like a PC 98 emulator to play some of the worst dating sims ever. It was just very heavily in rotation. And I knew at one point in my life, I'd wanted to make something like that because of just how fun that sounded. P.S. Game dev is much harder than music. Let me tell you that much. It is, oh man, it's a whole different world. More than that, but when it came to that, I remember I had commissioned Elfie just like, hey, listen, would you like to like design 2 characters for like maybe a concept album that I might be working on? I really love your art. Thank you so much for coming to the show. Commissioned them, got the artwork back. And as soon as I saw that like oil slick background on the album art that you see now, something like clicked inside of me. And I was like, okay, if I need to go big for this tape, and if I really want to make something that is like comparable to like a very big release in my discography, I've got to go all out. Called up my friends Ant and Yuviko. We were like, dude, we need to do this right now. So what I originally thought would take 3 months ended up taking half the year, because game development, man. Oh my God. I probably spent like intermittently throughout those 6 months just going back on my laptop, coding, testing. And eventually I had the smartest idea of wanting to integrate voice actors at the last second. So I asked 2 of my greatest friends, shout out Wen C and shout out Entafon. amazing artist, by the way. Would recommend her music. If you saw me at the release show, I was profusely crying for the entirety of that 30 minutes. Genuinely. Um, anyways, back on topic. You know, it was just like this whole thing, and like I think for the first time in a very long time, because as I mentioned before, I kind of reached like a stagnating point with my music. Something was firing within my brain. Like this was the project that I had wanted to do. There was like so much like influences, like everything was building up to this. I had sharpened enough blades so now I could start making the cuts. And what ended up happening was just like a very Sisyphean, just like I made the music, I would work on the dating sim, I would go to bed. Woke up, I worked on the music, work on the dating sim, I would go to bed. And I would just keep doing that until I finished it. And even like I was telling Chai like the whole premise while they were like in Valencia and studying abroad. It was just like it was always with me. It kind of haunted me in a sense. And I knew at some point I was like, okay, well, if it's haunting me this much, I need to complete it and put it to rest. And eventually, it's out now. It's a very fun game. I still have to do some like patch fixes on that, but it's just a dating sim about two girls falling in love during college. Nothing wild, nothing more than that. And a lot of the essentially branding around that and like that release was based on those two characters. The visualizer has like a little prelude, including them just kind of going on a car ride. The cassette tapes that I sell, which are only $15 on the Bandcamp, mind you, they have, Uvico made this very beautiful piece of art that like kind of doubled as like a fake video game cover to like really send the message home. There was just like a lot of things that like went into it, and it was just like some of the most ambitious things I had like ever done in my artist career. I mean, that wouldn't have been possible without your support too, Ryan. Let me just mention that as well. For the record, putting it on the record on video. But now I find myself in a very interesting spot because now I need to find a different way to fire off those neurons again. And suddenly, as soon as I finished like, submitting everything for the album process, I was like, so like, what if I like started a band and like, it was essentially just like, everything just kind of, it's very, I find it, I forgot the name of the practice that like a lot of these like monks do in like Tibet or something. And essentially what they do is like, they create these like very intricate sand, like pieces of sand art, and they spend like literal months on it. And by the time that they finish, they completely like sweep it away and they start working on a new thing. I feel like a lot of like my creative process is meant for that. And, it's still very much there. Thankfully, we have the power of the archive behind us, but very much just like, May Every Shape Hold is such an important album. And like, it's certainly not done. There are some remixes currently being finished up right now for that album, which I'm very excited to present. But, it's just a matter of like, trying to push myself even more and more. And I'm really grateful that Mesh was able to do that for me because I hadn't felt like that in a very long time.
I know the story, but I feel like all of those pieces that come together to make an album is always something that it gets left off. Maybe it's on a press release. Maybe it's told in a little interview. So I always feel like I always want artists to talk about that stuff. And I think, yeah, what you put together for your album is incredible. And you mentioned the live band stuff that's in the works, that's coming. Chaiah, what about you? What do you have kind of lined up next, or is Control release still top of mind? Still trying to work that? What is your next step?
I don't know this. I think it's good to give some time for projects to be like taken care of, not always be like releasing and releasing. I this project took so long that I want to like give it some space to exist. Still playing shows for it, doing stuff for it, some remixes in the works for it, perhaps by the person I have next to me. Different things. I really appreciate this project. I worked on it so much that now I've been mainly focusing on producing other artists, which I find very inspiring because, maybe when you take like a little gap from being creative or from composing yourself and you allow other people's compositions to come to you and like work with them, and it's something they put so much love and effort to, and they trust your vision to take care of them. I just find that very beautiful, and I'm trying to collaborate as much with as many people before I leave this place. And it's been very nice. It's been a lot of work, but very nice, and it's very personal. I try to be like, I try always whatever I work on, like shit and leave it like in the best shape I possibly can. So like it's something we're both proud of, like the artist, myself, and who else is involved. Being a producer and mixing engineer, I just want it to sound like amazing, you know. I just want it to be this enjoyable thing. So yeah, I've been working with some artists like Marilyn, Simone, like Tessa Jade, Cordelia Fox, Franco Lop from Argentina, Michael Dunaway, Matthew Drake. Like I've been producing for a bunch of people. I'm also helping and working with Lilith in some of their new live album stuff, which is very exciting. But I've given myself a space to also work a little bit on my own stuff, and I recently recorded like a 2-3 track thing that might be coming up in the summer. So we'll see about that. I need to share it with you, Ryan.
That's exciting.
Yes.
lot of kept secrets here. Excited for that though. We are getting close to the end of this, but before, there's something I want to talk to you both about that I feel like we've talked separately, talked a little bit about movies. I feel like both of you are fans of movies. I remember Chaiah, you talked to me a little bit about The Substance. We had one of those conversations. Me, you, Anna had a conversation, talked a little bit about The Substance. Lilith, you talked about Jackie Chan Criterion Collections. And I don't know, you've been watching a lot of movies lately. Tell me about a movie recently that really like impacted you in a certain way, or you just want to talk about, like you have to talk about.
Are you giving it to me? Okay. First off, you trying to follow me on Letterboxd right now? Here's my whole thing. Naomi Psyop. You already know what's going on. Follow me on there. I got every single movie that I've watched. Okay. I'm gonna talk my shit about this movie real quick. I'm gonna hit you with I'm not gonna say Paddington, but recently I've rewatched Perfect Blue by Satoshi Kon, if I recall correctly. And it is probably, Black Swan, found dead in a ditch. Essentially everything that Black Swan is essentially like, perfect Black Swan is, or Perfect Blue is exactly what Black Swan wanted to be. And it's just this very beautiful movie about just like identity and like essentially just like being under the pressure of like a lot of like, eyes on you, paranoia. We're talking like parasocial relationships. It is just a very like captivating work by the director too. There's just so much to unpack. If I say anything about the movie, if you ask me to explain this movie, I would sound like a complete like basket case when it comes to that. So I would recommend that. Another recommendation I would probably hit you with, Drunken Master, Jackie Chan. My friend Sai and I recently started the Criterion Challenge in 2025, which is essentially you have to watch 52 movies, and each movie is based on a criteria off of the Criterion collection. You have to watch all 52 movies before the end of the year. And right now we've just been on a Jackie Chan Criterion Collection box collection kick right now. And honestly, it's just been some of the most fun like action I've seen it, even though Jackie Chan might not be the best person. I mean, he throws hands. It's like Drunken Master was literally like 2 hours. Like the first 10 minutes, I can tell you there were at least 4 fights. Do you know how many fights that is in 10 minutes? It's one of my favorite, like just a great kung fu film. I would recommend it. And I just love movies. Follow me on Letterboxd. That's what's up. You get to see more of my opinions on there.
Yay. I've personally never been a letterbox person myself. Not that I have anything against it. I guess I just consume movies very privately and like in my own experience and time. But I do enjoy talking about movies a bunch, and I feel very inspired in my music by cinema all the time. Some of the pieces of work that have impacted me the most, there's this Argentinian director called Gaspar Noé that makes like both North American and French movies that are very intense and dramatic and raw. That I've I've like they've impacted me a lot when I was younger. I think that was one of the biggest cinematic challenges and for me. And then I guess some of the movies and pieces of work that impact me the most are some movies that have political content. Some of them that I can mention. There was this recent movie, I think it dropped like last year or something. It's an Italian movie about feminism and when women were allowed to vote for the first time. I was just searching the name in Italian, so I knew it's called Se ancora domani, or in English, There's Still Tomorrow. And I remember that movie. Poof, like it said it like if it was a super old movie, and it talks about so many things that are still going on today, and it was just so beautiful. And then another movie I would recommend is this movie called Argentina 1985, that it's about like Argentina's dictatorship and how the people involved in the genocide and all were judged and the things that happened afterwards. And I think everyone should watch that to be a little more aware of outside of Americans' history. So yeah, I feel very touched by movies that tell real stories and also by movies that just touch on points that can be meaningful and historical.
Awesome. Well, thanks, y'all. That I now have a bunch of recommendations to add to my watch list.
Yeah.
Got some Jackie Chan to watch. Got some Argentinian movies to watch. I think I have
Yay.
Perfect Blue on Blu-ray, but I've never seen it, so I got to get to that. Um, I'm sorry for offending you,
No,
Lilith.
hold my tongue. Hold my tongue. It's cool. It's okay. We're all good. We're chill.
But thank you for taking the time today. A solid 90 minutes
Thank you, Ryan.
of talking.
Solid.
This is the first of many, I think, times we'll do this. My goal here with Every Deja Vu TV is to keep bringing 1 to 2 artists on and then just keep it rolling. I want to do this a little bit more common so I can keep having people come on again because there's always so much to talk about. I feel like we just scraped the surface here. But Lilith, I'll see you later tonight at the 404 show at Vinyl
You'll
Index.
you'll see Chai too. You'll see Chai too.
I'll see you there, Chai. Any other
Just take a
shows?
photo or something, man.
Well, we have to. We have to. Is there any other shows to look out for? Anything else to look out for? I know we mentioned some music coming up. I have your Instagrams on the screen so people know where to follow you. But if there's anything else you want to plug, now's your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. You're not hip. Peace is Volume 4, by the way. Chai will you'll technically be performing there too. Yeah, because we have a song there together. Well, have a whole live album. More to explain later on, but essentially the whole idea is that the band's gonna disband before the album comes out, so you'll never get to hear these songs live ever again. So I recommend you come to Pieces Volume 4 at Exit Galleries, April 24th. You already know what's going on. Your girls headlining, gonna be performing with some amazing artists there. Some upcoming shows today. If you around and you in Boston and you in this chat right now, would recommend coming to Vinyl Index to celebrate 404 Day with us. Next Wednesday at Zuzu, near Cambridge, I will be performing at a thing called Too Weird to Dance To, and just essentially be doing a throwing down. And then later that week, I'll be in New York performing for Revon Rules, who was just in the chat graciously. And on Saturday, I'll be hosting an event with my good friend Gumac for a DJ night called Fuck a Fortress with an amazing DJ named Baby Ghost. Amazing works. I know Chai, if you wouldn't mind me talking about this a little bit. I think we've just been both pretty busy in terms of just like getting some work done. Check out the song Chai produced for Marilyn Simone. Just an amazing piece of work there. I've got nothing so far, but would you like to plug any friends? I mean, we've got so many friends with like music coming out, if anything. Spread the wealth.
I mean, yeah, music is coming out all the time.
Caught?
Yeah, just I would just say keep an eye out for all that's coming.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for the space, Ryan.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for being part of it. Thanks for being part of the third episode, and thanks for also being part of the fourth pieces coming up. And yeah, well, I'll see y'all tonight, and thanks everybody who tuned in and chatted a little bit.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Have an amazing afternoon. Goodbye.